Now you've been hearing me rambling on, and now as promised, I'm going to get into the article, and then I'm going to see how well I can do this, hopefully within the 10 minutes. If not, we'll get there. 16 reasons to have sex daily. Stressed, burdened with life difficult problems, fear that your health is declining, then sex is the answer to happiness, longevity, and healthy body. Don't agree? Well, here's a list of the health benefits of sex. So do it daily to experience complete pleasure. These are 16 reasons to have sex today. Now, a good lot of these, I may come back through this series and post links to the actual studies that have proven a lot of this. Some of this is new information to me, but a lot of this I've heard for several years now. Some of it is 10 years old, but it's stuff that gets glossed over for the idea that sex is only for procreation, and if you're doing it for pleasure, or gosh forbid, your health, then you're a slut, you're a whore, and you should be ashamed of yourself because social morality says so. Number 1, de-stress. Sex helps you reduce stress. When deep breathing exercises fail to de-stress you, sex will do the needful. During sex, your body produces dopamine, a substance that fights stress hormones, endorphins, aka happiness hormones, and oxytocin, a desire-enhancing hormone secreted by the pituitary gland. In a study published in the Public Library of Science journal, 3 neurosciences researchers conducted a test on male rats and found that the sexually active rats were less anxious than rats with no sexual activity. Now, this is something that's also important as well. I came from being a high anxiety individual. I had an anxiety disorder. I still have an anxiety disorder, and I still get nervous now and again, just not to the level or degree in which I had been getting nervous in the past. One of the things my therapist mentioned, and no, it wasn't with a wink or a nod, for those of you with interesting imaginations, that sexual stimuli can oftentimes bring people down from horrible anxiety attacks when all else fails. Sadly, when I was at my worst, I didn't have access to sexual stimuli other than myself, and you can't masturbate in public, you know. And I agree with that, but I digress. So there is a lot of foundation on that. So not only can it help with stress, but for those of you who suffer from anxiety, well, getting some each day might not be such a bad idea, or getting some when appropriate, when children are not around, obviously, when you're having an anxiety attack, might actually be just what the doctor ordered. 2, great form of exercise. Making love is a form of physical activity. During intercourse, the physiological changes in your body are consistent with a workout. You must have noticed that the respiratory rate rises, which means you get tired, hence you burn calories. If you have sex 3 times a week for 15 minutes, but we know you can do better than that, haha, you'll burn about 7,500 calories in a year. That's the equivalent of jogging 75 miles. Heavy breathing raises the amount of oxygen in your cells, and the testosterone produced during sex keeps your bones, no pun intended, and muscles strong. Again, no pun intended, although we'll get to that one on the list as well. You'll know what I'm talking about when I get there. Lowers high blood pressure. Hugs and sex can improve your blood pressure. Sex reduces systolic blood pressure, that is, the bottom number while reading blood pressure. Researchers with the University of Pursley conducted an experiment on the same. They concluded that sex improved blood pressure. Number 4, builds your immunity. Trying to fight the sniffles? Sex is the answer to fight cold and other health problems. Sex can boost your immunity. Immunoglobulin A, an antigen that fights the flu, increases when the frequency of sex increases. Are you understanding now? Those of you who repress yourselves, who are so stressed, who have so much anxiety, who might be lashing out at family members when you don't intend to, can you start to understand why I'm even deciding to speak on this issue, aside from the obvious that this is a social issue? I haven't even gotten to half the list yet. And already the benefits of taking care of yourself, taking care of your wife, or taking care of your husband are very obvious. Unless, of course, you don't believe in science, in which case, obviously, there's not much that I can tell you about that. If your morality stems from a single book or books, and none of them tend to favor science, and you've decided to invest yourself in that idealism, which I'm not going to say you shouldn't, then obviously nothing I have to say here, since this is all scientifically based, is going to mean anything to you. This is somehow going to still be trumped by the idea that sex in and of itself is immoral. And this isn't necessarily the series to entirely try to entice you away from that. But when we have couples who cannot even talk about their sex because they're afraid that any position out of missionary is deviant and therefore the devil's work. When we have people who then find somebody and at a moment of weakness, although I'm not sure I really necessarily believe in such circumstances, give in to another partner who is willing to cater to those deviant activities, when instead the husband might be surprised at what the wife's into if she's willing to be open. And open doesn't have to mean slutty. Open doesn't have to mean evil. Open means that you guys are communicating. You're finding new ways to bond through your activities, which, as already stipulated so far, can give you health benefits. Health benefits that maybe not done daily, but with the respiratory stuff, if your guys are at least doing it 3 times a week for more than 15 minutes, then you're doing the equivalent of jogging 75 miles. How is that bad? How is that immoral? How is that the destruction of the moral fabric of society? I ask you. Can you also now see, dear viewers, where I talk about social morality? Sex is evil unless it's done for a purpose, for a reason, and that purpose and reason must not be for pleasure. Otherwise, you are being a whore. Or a man whore, although, again, we don't tend to ascribe that too much to men, do we? No, we usually pass them a brewski and give them a high five, but again, that's another video for another time. I'm going to stop this one here, and we're going to try to finish up the list in the next video here, but I'm hoping that with this new approach, with this new channel, maybe I can get to some of you out there who understand that sex is not your enemy. Sex is not even an enemy to morality, so long as it's obviously done consensually, safely, and without the inclusion, of course, of children. Beyond that, you know, as long as you guys are doing it behind closed doors where you would prefer to do it, you don't have to broadcast it to the world, what does it matter? Unless you still believe in the ideas that if I do this, it means I'm doing a secret harm. I'm breaking my covenant with God and bad things will happen, in which case I don't understand where this is coming from. Yes, I know I've read the scriptures, but I'm not understanding where this is realistically coming from. I don't recall Jesus ever saying that you are a horrible person. Did he not? Did he not defend a prostitute? Did he not? Did he not say, let he who is without sin cast the first stone when said prostitute was about to be stoned to death? Because again, that was socially moral to stone somebody who is considered immoral by the community to death. But yet you don't practice that so much anymore now, do you? Now this isn't about saying, oh, theism's bad, non-theism good. No, but this is about saying that you act as if we've never changed our social morality within the confines of religious ideals, dogmas, what have you. And yet there's so much that we do not practice, that we do not do now, but was considered socially moral throughout history, and in some cases is technically commanded by certain types of God or gods to be done. But we don't do those things. So why is this? Why is this the new thing that is the thing that we cling to the most? What are you honestly afraid of? I want you to ask yourself that question. Beyond the idea of God's word or what have you, what are you really afraid of? If we remove slut-shaming, if we remove the stigma against couples who are in a committed relationship or, gosh forbid, married, talking openly with each other about sex, sex other than missionary and sex other than reproduction, what would happen to the world then?